Emma, would you mind grabbing the good napkins? Mom asked, her voice carrying that particular pitch it always did when company was coming. Except today wasn't about company. It was just us, the Whitakers, in our Sunday best, gathered around the mahogany table that had been in the family for 3 generations. Sunday lunch at the Whitaker house, a tradition as immutable as the seasons. Sure, I said, pushing back my chair and heading toward the linen closet. As I passed behind my sister Kate, I noticed she hadn't touched her wine. Strange. Kate always had a glass half empty before the food even arrived. I returned with the cream-colored napkins, the ones with the embroidered edges that Mom received as a wedding gift 28 years ago and only used for special occasions. Apparently today qualified, though I couldn't figure out why. Dad's birthday was last month, and Mom's wasn't until September. No anniversaries or promotions had been mentioned. The napkins were my first clue that something was off. Kate wouldn't meet my eyes as I distributed them. Her posture was rigid, her fingers tapping an irregular pattern against the tablecloth. I'd seen this before, the building tension in her shoulders, the slight tightening around her mouth. Something was brewing. "These potatoes are divine, Carol," Aunt Patricia said to my mother. "You simply must share the recipe." Mom blushed appropriately. "Oh, it's nothing special, just a touch of garlic and rosemary." I smiled at the familiar exchange. Aunt Patricia asked for the recipe every time, and Mom always gave the same answer, never mentioning the secret ingredient I knew was a splash of heavy cream and a generous amount of European butter. "Emma, how's the new position treating you?" Dad asked, passing me the basket of rolls. Before I could answer, Kate's wine glass hit the table with unnecessary force. Not enough to spill, but enough to make the sound reverberate. All eyes turned to her. "Actually," Kate said, her voice cutting through the pleasant hum of conversation, "I've been meaning to ask Emma something." The dining room seemed to contract. Mom's smile froze, a perfect mask of confusion and concern. Dad's knife and fork paused midair. Aunt Patricia's eyes widened slightly, and she reached for her water glass. "What's that, Kate?" I kept my voice casual, though my heart had already begun to pound. The last time Kate had used that tone, it had been at my college graduation party, and it had ended with her storming out and not speaking to me for 3 weeks. Kate's eyes, so similar to mine in color but sharper somehow, locked onto my face. "You deliberately sabotaged my project so I wouldn't go on that important business trip." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. I felt my face flush, the heat spreading up my neck and across my cheeks. My fork clattered against my plate as I set it down. What?" My voice came out weaker than I intended, and I hated myself for it. Kate had always been able to do this, knock me off balance with just a few carefully chosen words. "Kate, honey," Mom began, her voice pitched to soothe. "This is hardly the time." "No, Mom," Kate interrupted. "I want to hear what Emma has to say. Because I know it was her." Dad cleared his throat. "Maybe we should—" "It's okay, Dad," I said, finding my voice at last. "I have no idea what Kate's talking about." But of course I did. I knew exactly what she meant. The Brennan account, the Tokyo trip, the presentation that had mysteriously gone missing from the company server 12 hours before her big meeting. I just didn't understand why she thought I had anything to do with it. "Don't play innocent," Kate hissed. "You've always been jealous of my position at Larson and Reed. You couldn't stand that I was finally getting noticed, that I might actually succeed at something you couldn't touch." I felt a flicker of anger ignite somewhere deep in my chest. Typical Kate, always casting herself as the victim, always assuming the worst of me. "That's ridiculous," I said, trying to keep my tone measured. "I haven't even been to your office in months." Kate's laugh was brittle. "You didn't need to be there in person. Ryan told me someone accessed the files using his credentials, someone who knew his password." My stomach dropped. Ryan, Kate's ex-boyfriend, my current colleague at the marketing agency where I'd recently been promoted. Yes, I knew his password. He'd shared it with me for a joint project we were working on, but I hadn't used it to sabotage Kate. The very thought was absurd. "Kate," I said carefully, "I didn't touch your presentation. Liar! The word exploded from her. You've always been like this, the perfect daughter, the responsible one, the one who never makes mistakes, but underneath, you're just threatened by anyone else's success. Mom's hand flew to her throat. Girls, please. It's not like that, I protested, feeling 12 years old again, defending myself against Kate's accusations that I'd stolen her favorite sweater or read her diary. I have my own career. Why would I care about your presentation? Because, Kate said, her voice dropping dangerously low, you've always hated that I might outshine you, that I might actually be better than perfect little Emma at something. The unfairness of it stung. For years I'd cheered Kate on, helped her with job applications, listened to her practice presentations late into the night. I'd been her biggest supporter, even when she'd made choices I didn't agree with, even when she'd dated Ryan, knowing how I'd felt about him in college. That's not true, I said quietly. I've always wanted you to succeed. Kate's lip curled. Please, you've been undermining me my entire life. And there it was, the root of it all. The childhood rivalry that had never quite healed, the invisible line drawn down the middle of our shared bedroom. Kate, the spontaneous, creative, rebellious one. Me, the planner, the achiever, the one who followed the rules. In Kate's mind, our parents' approval of me had always translated to disapproval of her. Kate, honey, Dad interjected, maybe we should discuss this privately, after lunch. No, Kate and I said simultaneously, our eyes locked across the table. Aunt Patricia shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Perhaps I should... No, stay, Kate said without looking at her. Everyone should hear this. Emma has been pretending to be the supportive sister for years, but she's always been undermining me. And this time I can prove it. She reached for her bag, which hung on the back of her chair, and pulled out her phone. Ryan said someone logged in from an IP address that wasn't from the office. Someone who accessed just my files, my presentation, at 10:42 p.m. on Thursday night. My mind raced. Thursday night. I'd been at home, working late on my own project. I hadn't touched Kate's presentation. I was at my apartment, I said, working on the Thompson campaign. I was on a video call with clients until midnight. For a moment, doubt flickered across Kate's face. Then her expression hardened again. You could have done both. Or you could have set up something to delete the files automatically. That's not how it works, I began, but Mom cut me off. Girls, this is getting us nowhere, she said, her voice firm. Kate, these are serious accusations. Emma says she didn't do it. Without concrete proof, of course you'd take her side, Kate exploded. Emma's never done anything wrong in her life, has she? Not in your eyes, Mom paled. That's not what I meant. It never is, Kate muttered. She looked down at her plate, stabbing at a potato with unnecessary force. But it's always how it comes across. I felt a familiar ache in my chest. This dynamic was as old as we were. Kate feeling overlooked, me feeling the pressure of impossible expectations, our parents caught in the middle, trying desperately to love us both equally without favoring either. Kate, I said softly, I didn't touch your presentation, I swear, but I'll help you figure out what happened. She looked up, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. Stop it, she hissed. Stop playing the hero. We both know you wanted that trip to Tokyo for yourself. I blinked, genuinely confused. What are you talking about? I don't even work for your company. No, but global marketing does. And guess which agency they approached first? Yours. But the Tokyo trip went to L&R instead, to me, and you couldn't stand it. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Last month, there had been rumors about our agency potentially partnering with global marketing for an international campaign, but the deal had fallen through, and we'd never been told why. I hadn't connected it to Kate's Tokyo trip. Kate, I didn't even know about that connection, I said truthfully. No one told me global marketing was considering us first. Bullshit, Kate snapped. Ryan told me you were in the preliminary meetings. A chill ran down my spine. Ryan. I should have known he was at the center of this somehow. Ryan, who had dated Kate for 8 months before breaking up with her just weeks before joining my agency. Ryan, who had been unusually interested in my family dynamics, always asking questions about Kate, about our childhood. Ryan was never in those meetings, I said slowly. He wasn't even working on the global marketing pitch. He's been on the Thompson account with me. Kate's confidence seemed to waver slightly. He said, "He lied," I interrupted. "And I'm starting to think he lied about a lot of things." An uncomfortable silence descended on the table. Dad cleared his throat. "Maybe we should all take a step back and—" "Did you ever wonder?" I continued, my mind racing ahead, connecting dots I should have seen sooner. "Why Ryan broke up with you right before taking a job at my agency? Or why he was so interested in our family dynamics?" Kate's face flushed. "Don't try to turn this around on him. This isn't about Ryan." "Isn't it?" I countered. "He's the one who told you someone used his credentials. He's the one who pointed the finger at me. Did he show you the actual logs? The IP address? Any actual evidence?" Kate's silence was answer enough. "Kate," I said gently, "I think Ryan is playing us against each other." Mom exhaled sharply. "Emma, that's a serious accusation." "Yes, it is," I agreed. "Just as serious as the one Kate just made against me." Kate's eyes narrowed. "Why would Ryan do that? What would he possibly gain?" I thought about the way Ryan had insinuated himself into my professional life, how he'd volunteered for the Thompson campaign despite it being outside his usual area, how he'd subtly positioned himself to have access to my work, my ideas. "The promotion," I said slowly. "He wanted my position. He's been angling for it since he joined." Aunt Patricia, who had been silent through most of this exchange, suddenly spoke up. "The young man Kate used to bring around?" "Tall fellow, very charming, with the dimples." Kate nodded stiffly. "I never trusted him," Aunt Patricia declared, reaching for her wine. "Too smooth by half. And the way he looked at you, Emma, even when he was with Kate. Not appropriate at all." I felt my cheeks heat. I hadn't noticed Ryan looking at me any particular way, but Aunt Patricia had always been perceptive about these things. "This is absurd," Kate said, but there was a thread of uncertainty in her voice now. "Ryan wouldn't. He's not that calculating." "Isn't he?" I challenged. "Think about it, Kate. He dated you for months, learned all about our family, about our work. Then he broke up with you and immediately took a job at my agency. And now somehow we're fighting over a deleted presentation that he claims I sabotaged using his credentials." Kate sat back in her chair, her expression troubled. I could see her mind working, reassessing past conversations, moments that might have seemed innocent at the time, but now took on new significance. "If what you're saying is true," she said slowly, "then who deleted my presentation?" I hesitated. The answer seemed obvious to me now, but saying it out loud would only drive a deeper wedge between us if I was wrong. "I think," I said carefully, "that you should ask Ryan to show you the actual access logs. Not just tell you what they say, but show you. And if he can't or won't, that might tell you something." Kate's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced down at it, and a strange expression crossed her face. "Everything all right, dear?" Mom asked, clearly relieved by the interruption. Kate didn't answer immediately. She stared at her phone, then slowly turned it over, screen down. "It's nothing," she said, but her voice had lost its edge. "Just work." Dad seized the opportunity to change the subject. "Speaking of work, Patricia, how's the new position at the community college?" As Aunt Patricia launched into a detailed description of her new role in the English department, I watched Kate. Something had shifted. The tension in her shoulders remained, but it was different now, less directed at me, more inward focused. Whatever that message had contained, it had affected her. Under the table, I reached for my bag. I'd prepared for this lunch, knowing that something felt off. After Ryan's strange behavior at work last week, I'd done some digging of my own. What I'd found had shocked me, but I'd held off confronting anyone until I was sure. Now seemed like the right time. "Actually, I said, interrupting Aunt Patricia's story about a particularly troublesome student. There's something I'd like to share. All eyes turned to me. Kate's gaze was wary, her fingers twitching toward her phone. I've been concerned about some things at work, I began carefully, specifically about Ryan's behavior. Kate's eyes narrowed. Emma, please let me finish, I said. Last week, I noticed some irregularities in the Thompson campaign files. Small things, creative concepts slightly altered, strategic recommendations tweaked. Nothing major, just enough that if the campaign failed, the blame would fall on me as the team lead. Dad frowned. Are you saying this Ryan fellow was sabotaging your work? Yes, I said simply. And when I started looking into it, I found something else. I pulled out a folder from my bag and placed it on the table. Inside were printouts of chat logs, conversations between Ryan and someone named Alex dated over the past 3 months. I wouldn't normally invade someone's privacy like this, I explained, but our IT department flagged these messages because they were sent using company resources, discussing company business. Kate's face had gone very still. What do they say? Instead of answering, I slid the folder toward her. See for yourself. With visible reluctance, Kate opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the first page, then widened. Color drained from her face as she flipped to the second page, then the third. Kate? Mom's voice was concerned. What is it? Kate looked up at me, her expression a mixture of shock, embarrassment, and something like remorse. Ryan, he's been... She swallowed hard. He's been playing us both. She pushed the folder back toward me. Read it. All of you. I hesitated, then picked up the top page and began to read aloud. Alex, the plan is working perfectly. Kate thinks Emma sabotaged her presentation, and Emma has no idea I'm the one altering her Thompson campaign files. By the time this is over, neither of them will trust the other, and I'll be perfectly positioned to step into Emma's role when she inevitably gets blamed for the campaign's failure. I paused, letting the words sink in. Mom's hand was pressed against her mouth. Dad's expression had hardened into something dangerous. The best part, I continued reading, is that Kate never even wanted to go on that Tokyo trip. She told me herself she was terrified of presenting to the global board. So I did her a favor, really. Deleted the presentation, gave her an out, and set up Emma to take the fall. 2 birds, 1 stone. Kate's face crumpled. I did say that, she admitted quietly. That I was nervous about the presentation, but I never asked him to. I would never have wanted... She broke off, unable to continue. There's more, I said, turning to the next page. Once Emma's discredited at her agency and Kate believes she can't trust her sister, I'll be the one they both turn to. Emma's position will be mine, and Kate will be grateful for the shoulder to cry on, maybe grateful enough to put in a good word for me with her boss. The silence that followed was deafening. Aunt Patricia was the first to break it. Well, she said with uncharacteristic venom, I always said that young man was a snake. Kate's laugh was hollow, edged with hysteria. All this time, she said, I thought it was Emma undermining me, but it was Ryan, the person I trusted most. And he was undermining me too, I added softly, using our history, our complications, against both of us. Kate looked at me then, really looked at me, for what felt like the first time in years. Behind the anger and humiliation in her eyes, I glimpsed something else, a flicker of the closeness we'd once shared, before competition and misunderstandings had driven us apart. I'm sorry, she whispered, for accusing you, for believing the worst. The simple apology pierced me more deeply than her accusations had. How long had it been since either of us had apologized to the other? Since we'd allowed ourselves to be vulnerable instead of defensive? I'm sorry too, I said, for not seeing what Ryan was doing sooner, for letting us drift so far apart that his plan could even work. Mom sniffled loudly, drawing our attention. Tears streamed down her face. My girls, she said brokenly, how did we get here? How did we become a family that could be manipulated this way? Dad reached for her hand, his own eyes suspiciously bright. We all played a part in it, Carol. The expectations, the comparisons. We thought we were helping, but maybe we were just setting them up to compete. The truth of his words settled over the table. We had all contributed to this dynamic. Mom and Dad with their well-intentioned but damaging comparisons, Kate and I with our stubborn refusal to communicate openly, to see beyond our own insecurities. What happens now? Aunt Patricia asked practically. With this Ryan character, I mean. I exchanged a look with Kate. I've already spoken with HR, I said. They're reviewing the evidence. He'll likely be terminated. Kate nodded slowly. And I'll talk to my boss on Monday. Explain what happened with the presentation. Take responsibility for my part in it. Your part? Mom questioned. Kate sighed. I did tell Ryan I was nervous about the Tokyo trip. That was true. But I should have been honest with my team instead of confiding in someone who would use that information against me. She looked at me. Against us. For the first time since the confrontation began, I felt a wave of genuine compassion for my sister. How familiar that feeling was. The pressure to be perfect, to never show weakness. Hadn't I lived with the same pressure my entire life? We're more alike than we admit, I said softly. Kate's smile was sad but real. Kate's smile was sad but real. Maybe that's why we clash so hard. Aunt Patricia cleared her throat. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I could use something stronger than wine after all that. She looked pointedly at Dad. Robert, don't you have that good scotch somewhere? Dad seemed relieved by the suggestion. Coming right up, Pat. As he left for the liquor cabinet, Mom began clearing plates with mechanical precision, her usual response to emotional upheaval. Aunt Patricia rose to help her, leaving Kate and me alone at the table. I have a confession, Kate said after a moment, her voice low enough that only I could hear. I was jealous of your promotion, your confidence. You always seem to know exactly what you're doing, and I'm just faking it most of the time. The admission stunned me. Kate, I'm terrified constantly, I confessed. Every day I worry someone will realize I have no idea what I'm doing, that I'm just guessing, hoping I get it right. She stared at me. You? But you're always so sure, so composed. I laughed softly. It's an act, one I've gotten very good at. I hesitated, then added, I've been jealous of you too, you know. Your ability to take risks, to not overthink everything, to live in the moment. Kate's expression softened. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Each envying what the other has, never seeing our own strengths. Or helping each other with our weaknesses, I added. The moment stretched between us, fragile but hopeful. Then Kate reached across the table and took my hand, a gesture so unexpected that I almost pulled away in surprise. I miss my sister, she said simply. Tears pricked at my eyes. I miss you too. Dad returned with the scotch and 4 glasses. I think we all could use this, he said, pouring generous measures. A toast. We each raised our glasses, the amber liquid catching the light from the chandelier above. To truth, Dad proposed, however uncomfortable. To family, Mom added, her voice steadier now. However imperfect. Aunt Patricia raised her glass higher. To getting rid of toxic men who play mind games. That surprised a laugh out of all of us, breaking the last of the tension. To new beginnings, Kate said, her eyes on mine, and second chances. I felt something shift in my chest, a loosening of a knot I'd carried for so long I'd forgotten it was there. To seeing each other clearly, I added, finally. We drank, the scotch burning a path down my throat, warming me from the inside. Outside, through the dining room window, I could see the first buds of spring on the old maple tree, tiny promises of renewal after a long winter. It wouldn't be easy. Years of misunderstandings and hurt feelings couldn't be erased in a single afternoon. The habits of competition and defensiveness were deeply ingrained in both of us. But as Kate's hand found mine again under the table, I allowed myself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this painful revelation could be the beginning of something new. Not a perfect family. We'd never be that. But perhaps a real one. One where we could be flawed and frightened, and occasionally petty, but still love each other, still choose each other again and again. And for now, that possibility felt like enough.